In a quiet suburban neighborhood, the local homeowners association had a reputation for being strict, controlling, and at times downright abusive of their authority. Among the residents was a woman named Dana Coleman, a private and reserved individual who had recently moved into the area. Dana was a proud black woman, highly educated and very professional. While most of her neighbors saw her as simply another homeowner, what they didn't know was that she also held a position as a youth marshal. She didn't flaunt her job or share personal details with anyone. She simply wanted to live peacefully and enjoy her home after long, grueling workdays. However, her arrival stirred unease within the HOA leadership, especially with the president, a controlling and manipulative woman named Linda Harper. Linda believed she had absolute authority over the neighborhood and despised anyone who didn't bow to her rules. Dana had refused to sign certain optional agreements the HOA pushed on new residents, which immediately put her on Linda's radar. For weeks, Dana began receiving passive-aggressive letters about minor infractions, things like her porch light being too bright or her grass being a quarter-inch too long. Dana brushed these off, staying calm and refusing to engage in petty arguments. As time went on, the harassment escalated. Linda began spreading rumors at HOA meetings, whispering that Dana was untrustworthy and possibly hiding something. Some of the more gullible residents bought into the gossip. When none of her intimidation tactics worked, Linda decided to take things to another level. She contacted a couple of her friends who had experience in private security and suggested a scheme that would scare Dana into submission. Late one evening, there was a loud, aggressive knock at Dana's door. It was nearly 10 p.m., and Dana had just returned home from a long day of work. Looking through her security camera feed, she saw two men standing on her porch. They were wearing dark uniforms and fake badges clipped to their belts, posing as police officers. One of them even had a radio clipped to his shoulder to complete the look. When Dana answered the door, the men immediately launched into their act. They claimed they were responding to reports of illegal activity on her property and demanded to come inside. Their tone was sharp and commanding, the type meant to intimidate someone into complying without question. Dana, however, wasn't an ordinary homeowner. She had years of training and knew exactly how real law enforcement should operate. She calmly asked to see their identification. The men flashed fake badges so quickly she barely caught a glimpse, hoping to rush past her with their story. Dana didn't budge. She asked for their supervisor's name and badge numbers, but the men grew more hostile, saying she needed to cooperate immediately or face arrest. Dana's instincts told her this was a setup. Without raising her voice, she stepped aside and said, "It's funny. I work in law enforcement too. Let me show you something." She walked over to a nearby table and picked up her black leather case. Opening it, she revealed her authentic U.S. Marshal badge and credentials, which were unmistakable and impossible to fake. She held it up and looked them both dead in the eye. "I'm Deputy U.S. Marshal Dana Coleman," she said firmly. "You, too, are impersonating police officers on federal property. That's a felony." The two men froze. Their faces went pale as the weight of what they had just walked into hit them. Dana could see the panic creeping in as they realized they hadn't just targeted a random homeowner, they had targeted a federal officer. Before they could react, Dana pulled out her phone and began recording, making it clear that their every move was now being documented. She stated the date and time on camera and described their attempt to enter her home under false pretenses. She then informed them that if they didn't leave immediately, they would be placed under arrest and charged with impersonating law enforcement officers. The men didn't wait for her to finish. They bolted down the steps and sprinted to a waiting car parked a few houses down. Dana followed them to the edge of her driveway, catching their license plate on video before they sped off into the night. Dana wasted no time. She immediately contacted local police, her U.S. Marshal supervisor, and federal authorities to report the incident. Within hours, an investigation was underway. When Dana reviewed her security footage, the evidence was crystal clear. The two men had been sent there with malicious intent. The next morning, Linda showed up at Dana's property, feigning concern. She asked if Dana was okay and claimed to have heard a commotion the night before. Dana didn't reveal what she knew, instead watching Linda carefully as she tried to gauge her reaction. A few days later, the police contacted Dana to confirm that they had identified the men. Their connection to Linda was undeniable. Not only were they not real officers, but one of them had a prior record for fraud and impersonation. It became clear that Linda had orchestrated the entire encounter, hoping to frighten Dana into either leaving the neighborhood or falling under her control. When confronted with the evidence, Linda's smug demeanor finally cracked. She tried to spin the story, claiming it was a misunderstanding and that she only wanted to resolve a neighborly dispute. But Dana wasn't having it. She handed over all the video footage, including her recording of the confrontation, which clearly showed the men threatening her under false authority. Federal charges were filed against the two men, and Linda faced serious legal consequences for conspiracy and harassment. The neighborhood was stunned. Many residents who had believed Linda's lies began distancing themselves from her, horrified that she had gone so far as to send fake cops to a neighbor's door. As for Dana, she remained calm and professional throughout the ordeal. She continued living in her home, refusing to be driven out by fear or intimidation. In the following HOA meeting, she attended with a quiet confidence that spoke louder than any confrontation. Linda, now facing both civil and criminal consequences, resigned as HOA president in disgrace. In the end, Dana's strength and composure turned the entire situation around. She proved that no amount of scheming or bullying could shake her resolve, especially when the law was on her side. The rest of the neighborhood learned a valuable lesson about standing up to corrupt authority and never underestimating someone just because they choose to live quietly. Dana's final words to the HOA were simple yet powerful. "Next time you send someone to my door, make sure they're real officers because I am